ready, sir. Ready, fight!
And here we go. White trunks for Hendo, black trunks for DC, Daniel Cormier. That right hand is always in the trigger position.
You could see by the stance of Cormier that he was going to start throwing some kicks. Seemed to have a bit of an upright stance. And that's one of the differences between their styles. Cormier throws a lot of hand techniques, but he'll throw high kicks. You very rarely see that from Henderson, but does have good leg kicks. Ducks under there.
Yeah, he did. Looking for the, oh my!
Beautiful, beautiful.
Great takedown, right into side control, Joe.
Wow.
He took Hendo for a ride there.
Cormier, the bigger man, struggles a bit to get down to 205, and as we said, Dan Henderson weighed in quite a bit below the limit at 199.
We've only seen Cormier for 1 minute and 19 seconds at 205 in that fight against Patrick Cummins down the street at the Mandalay Bay.
And Dan has Cormier's right arm tied up with his legs, and he's holding on to his left arm like this. He's got him in a bit of a cradle. Look at that. Cormier tried to slam his way out of it. And Dan hit him with some hard elbows from this position. He's trying to hold that arm in place. Now he's trying to go for an arm bar. He's trying to submit him here, and Cormier pulls his arm out.
Both of these men possess that wrestling strength, Joe.
And Cormier got out of both trouble spots. And now Cormier in full side control here.
Trying to work the body of Henderson. Wants to get out of this position. We always talk about iron sharpens iron. Cain Velasquez, Daniel Cormier. They were made to go to battle as teammates in MMA. They have both learned from each other and pushed each other to unparalleled limits.
That is a tremendous advantage, having someone like Cain Velasquez with just infinite gas tank, who has world-class skills, one of the best heavyweights, if not the best ever, and that's the guy you train with on a day-to-day basis. I mean,
and they're really not cutting weight, Joe, but when they're in there working, they're really close in weight.
Yeah.
Similar build, everything's perfect.
Yeah, and they go at it. I've watched some of those training camps. I've watched some of those videos of sparring sessions, and it's amazing. I mean, these guys push each other to the brink, and that's what makes great fighters. Having that kind of an environment, having great training partners that are elite world-class fighters that, you know, are better than almost anybody you're ever going to face inside the cage.
Cormier trying to get the mount.
Moving into mount as Dan holds onto his neck. And Dan's in a bit of a pickle here. He's not taking too much damage, but he's stuck underneath the bigger man, and Cormier not scoring any points, and he can't win from there.
And again, half guard is a position that wrestlers don't mind from the top. And now he's trying once again to get to the full mount. Yeah, almost there.
He's hitting him with some hard body shots too, and that allowed him to fully escape in the mount. And Dan is trying to hip escape and get back to half guard.
He does.
Wrap the leg up, but purely defensive at this point.
No question. But as you said, not taking a ton of damage.
Not taking a ton of damage, but getting exhausted, having the bigger man on top of him. And for DC, not much work. Making Henderson carry his weight is huge. Big punches to the body. Good up kick by Dan.
Henderson's last 7 bouts have come against former champions in one organization or another, and Cormier thinks he's a future champion.
This is crazy watching Cormier ragdoll Dan on the ground like this. The way he took him down, and now the way he's handling him on the ground. These are big shots.
Just over a minute on the clock here in the first.
Completely controlling the ground.
Yeah. And this is Olympian versus Olympian. Both
looking
men
for Kimura
the
here.
U.S.
North-south position.
A lot of top position here in round 1 for DC.
Dan looking for trying to get a leg lock there and allowed him to stand back up. He's on that leg lock attempt to get back to his feet.
Watch for the H-bomb.
When you see Daniel Cormier, I should say, stand up tall, well, there's a big right hand over the top. Look for those kicks to start coming. There it is. Yeah.
And with Henderson, look for the low inside kick from the left with the right hand follow. That's his trademark move.
Look at it. Henderson trying to take Cormier down.
And Cormier able to stuff it. 10 seconds on the clock. Big round one for Cormier.
Yeah, huge with that big takedown this round. But make no mistake about it, just like Shogun dominated the first round in the last fight that Dan Henderson had, Dan can still shut the lights out with one shot at any time.
Shogun really put a lot of hurting on Henderson in that rematch for the first 2 rounds. Had Dan in trouble.
Well, that's one of the things about Dan is his durability. He's got a shocking chin.
And here he takes a big swing. And remember, Cormier made his light heavyweight debut against Patrick Cummins. Fight only lasted a little over a minute, so we'll keep an eye on the cardio of Daniel Cormier.
He's in great shape. I don't think you have to worry about that. But the Patrick Cummins fight was a quick victory. But in Cummins' defense, he took that fight on literally a week's notice.
Yeah.
Crowd's booing.
And of course, cardio stays with you when you're on top. That's what DC's doing again.
Yeah, I mean, he's not having to work nearly as hard as Henderson does, carrying all that weight and also trying to push that weight off you to get back up to your feet. Oh, big elbow by Cormier.
Of course, we had the Ronda Rousey-Sarah McMahon Olympic matchup.
This shows you what kind of respect Daniel Cormier has for the punching power of Dan Henderson when you consider the guys that Cormier has stood up with, guys like Bigfoot Silva, guys like Josh Barnett, has been in there with, you know.
Guy's about 50 pounds heavier than
big
Dan
shots,
Henderson.
big shots by Cormier.
Henderson trying to get up.
I mean, in the Josh Barnett fight, we really got to see what kind of wrestling Cormier possesses. To watch him ragdoll that big former heavyweight champion like that. And that was a big test for him as well, that Strikeforce Heavyweight Grand Prix. We also got to see in the Bigfoot Silva fight his combinations of his punches, which are outstanding.
Ground strikes, all Cormier.
Yeah, Cormier looks like he's trying to set up a submission, Mike. He's riding on top.
Shot to the body.
Big shot to the body. Big punches by DC, big left hands.
Henderson is just in defense mode again.
Yeah, he's completely stuck.
Midway point of the fight.
Oh,
another big shot.
Hard shots. And again, DC just moving all over him, controlling him, full mount now for DC.
And that is one thing Cormier said, Joe, is that he felt he could out-wrestle Dan Henderson.
Well, he's certainly been correct.
No doubt about it. Trying to advance to that full mount again.
He had it briefly, but Dan did a good job of hip escaping, getting back to half guard. A bit better defensively, but Cormier still just roughing him up. Elbows, punches to the body.
Officially, Cormier has 2 takedowns, but man, is he taking advantage of those.
He's trying to get him in a mounted crucifix here. His ability to control Dan Henderson is actually pretty shocking. I mean, when was the last time we ever saw anybody do this on the ground?
Maybe never, right?
I don't think so. I can't think of a time where you see Dan for 2 rounds solid on his back, squirming around. You know, that leg lock attempt was the only thing to get him back up to his feet. And Dan's trying to tie up that leg again. He's going to have to go under that left leg of Cormier, though, to try to get back up to his feet. And Cormier's not having any of it.
No, and he knows how to stay heavy.
And he's beating Dan up in the process. Making Dan carry his weight. Dan tried to roll, but look, Cormier followed him perfectly. Right back into side control, sticks to him like glue. Heavy hips.
Good ground and pound by Daniel Cormier here in round 2.
Yeah, Dan is getting beat up. I mean, Dan's trying desperation moves like knees to the body from the bottom. He is getting pounded on.
Yeah. Yves Levine right there takes a look at the clock, takes a look at the action. He knows how durable Henderson is, though.
Well, that's one of the things about being a legend. Everybody gets to know how you fight, right? You know, there's no surprises in the chin of Dan Henderson.
North-south
This is crazy. Look at this top position. 7 minutes and 28 seconds in 2 rounds.
So basically about 8 out of 10 minutes of the fight.
These are big shots from Cormier. just slowly but surely beating Dan up, making Dan carry his weight for 2 rounds, and then hanging on here in the 3rd, though, doing nothing, waiting for the clock to run out.
He did it with 2, and he wants to continue to make a statement here in Las Vegas against Hendo. 3rd and final round.
And again, a tall Daniel Cormier standing up high, not worried about the takedowns of Dan Henderson. Look for that left kick.
And standing up is what Henderson needs to do in this round. He's got to keep this on the feet, give himself a chance to win. That's his move, that low kick and the punch, but it's usually at a little quicker speed. Hendo's gas from carrying Cormier for so long.
Goodness.
My goodness, indeed.
Wow.
Look at that.
Just complete ragdoll on him.
You're absolutely right, Joe. It's a first for Dan Henderson.
Yeah, this is, I mean, total domination by Cormier. And in the grappling, you know, in Dan Henderson's world.
Yeah. The athleticism of Cormier.
The technique, the athleticism, the conditioning, the power, everything. He's a beast.
Yep, top of the food chain.
I mean, there's a reason why everybody's so high on this man, and it's not just because of the fact that he's had so much success. It's what everybody has said about him in the training room. It's what everybody knows about him based on his wrestling credentials. He's something special.
Yeah, and when you talk about a guy's heroes, Cormier talks about John Smith and Kevin Jackson, Dan Gable, Kenny Monday, some of the greatest wrestlers of all time. And you've always said, Joe, the greatest base in MMA is wrestling. They both have it. Right now, Daniels
No
is
question.
better.
Well, look at, you know, you're talking about a guy who's 35 years old, started training at MMA at 30.
Yeah.
He's one of the elite of the elite. And he's dominating one of the greatest of all time right now.
And he's got full mount.
Same thing with John Jones. Look at John Jones.
Yep.
I mean, the guy trains for 4 years, dominates the light heavyweight division, and wins the title, youngest guy ever. Wrestling. It all starts out in wrestling. It's because the mind is the most important part of the big picture. And no one has a stronger mindset than amateur wrestlers. No one. They endure so much, and they're so mentally tough. And I think that when you get as good as a guy like Daniel Cormier gets at wrestling, you can get good at anything. It's just, they're willing to work harder, they're smarter, they're more focused. There's just something about the elite of the elite in any given sport.
They embrace the grind. And really, Joe, what you just said about Daniel Cormier, we were saying about Cain Velasquez 5 years ago.
Absolutely.
Same base,
Yep.
and look where he is now.
And this is one of the reasons why Cain is so good. And this is one of the reasons also why Daniel's so good. Because Daniel Cormier goes through this with Cain, you know, on a daily basis, all year round. This is bad. I mean, Dan Henderson has nothing left in the tank. And if Daniel Cormier unloads, he could easily get this fight stopped.
This is perhaps as one-sided as we've seen Dan Henderson be dominated in the UFC.
Well, certainly for 3 rounds.
Definitely in the UFC.
Certainly for 3 rounds. You know, I mean, we've seen him lose quickly, like the Vitor Belfort fight, and we've seen him, you know, lose in the 2nd round of the Anderson Silva fight.
But a good first round, even.
Yeah, a good first round where he controlled Anderson on the ground, but we've never seen this. I mean, this is Daniel Cormier proving to the world that he's one of the best in the division at 205 pounds, one of the scariest of the contenders.
Bigger, younger, faster.
Just awesome, you know? And now Daniel Cormier has got the back of Dan Henderson with the arm underneath the neck.
Yeah, he wants to finish this fight. Trying to tap him out.
He might have it here.
DC looking
He's
for the
pulling on
submission.
his own glove for the finish.
Man, how tough is that?
That's it.
It is all over. Daniel Cormier, winner by submission. He defeats Dan Henderson.
He went out.
Total domination.
He choked Dan out right in front of us.
Hendo wouldn't tap.
Henderson is waking up right now, realizing what happened. I don't know if Hendo tapped or if he went out after he tapped. It's hard to tell. We couldn't see. We'll see it in the replay, but what a performance by Daniel Cormier. Look at this. I mean, he did that to Josh Barnett, so I don't know why we're surprised that he did it to Dan Henderson. But look at this. He gets him back up, and look at this trip. Watch this. Gets him up. Watch his left leg. Whoop. Boom. I mean, it's like, all due respect, it's like a man and a boy. Now here, he sunk it in. He got his back, and he never tapped. Yves Lavigne recognized that Dan was out. Dan never tapped. There's not a tougher man that's ever walked the face of the planet than Dan Henderson.
Amen.
But man, Daniel Cormier is something special.
He refused to tap, finished nonetheless. Daniel Cormier is 15-0 as he defeats Dan Henderson with the official decision. Here is Bruce Buffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, referee Yves Lavigne has called a stop to this contest at 3 minutes, 53 seconds of the third round, declaring the winner by submission due to a rear naked choke, Daniel D.C. Cormier.